webinar. We also welcome Shri Abhishek Jain, who is the partner in National Head of Indirect Tax KPMG, and presently is representing FICCI in this webinar. We have taken FICCI as the partner for this webinar. So a warm welcome to Mr. Abhishek Jain. I think it's the first time he's joining us in any particular webinar. Coming to the presenter, Shri Arup Dasgupta. He is also a old workhorse of that part of the country, Eastern Zone, and is very well known there. I understand. He's been delivering lectures in NASIN as well as been educating the trade also, and his presentations and his dissertations are received very well there. And the last some webinars we have taken his services, and it was found that he got a very good response. So again, this time we have chosen him for this particular topic also. As you all know that DGTS, KZU as well as DZU, we always try to bring different topics in different months in webinars from starting from basics of GST on customs to the recently, the recommendations of the GST Council, which have been passed recently, and all the latest burning topics we bring it to the webinar so that the people get educated through this platform. The platform webinar has been well proven now, as people can just sit back from their own offices or at their homes and get the benefit out of it. The videos are also available on YouTube, and the small snippets are also available on the CBIC channel, WhatsApp channel, so people can go through it. So thank you again, people, for coming in this webinar. Also coming to the topic, the invoice management system is again, as I told, that is a very recent topic, and we are on discussion trade and with a lot of presenters. We realize that it's very necessary that people are aware, because this thing has come and it is not being very properly advertised in the media and all. Many people are not aware. It was initially thought to be brought on 1st October, but from 14th October is active now. As we all know that initially when GST was brought in, the entire thing was invoice matching and everything was brought in focus, but there were a lot of glitches and initial issues in that. And because of that, the invoice matching and that management system was kept on back burner for some time, because the system was stabilizing. Now the system is stabilized, the time has come for this system to come into being. So it's a very special system and very thought out platform brought out by GSTN, and it's available on GST portal. As you all know, that 2B reflects the invoices which are being forwarded to the taxpayer, and in this we get the option to accept or reject, and that the credit gets transferred seamlessly. Right now it is not mandatory, but I believe that from November return that all the glitches will be sorted out and it will be properly available. So this is the right time to bring it to the notice of taxpayer. All the different types of things are available in this system, like amendments, and even if there are no actions taken, deemed acceptance also there. I've gone through the presentations prepared by Mr. Arup, and it's a very detailed presentation. In fact, all the facets have been covered, and small things respect to the technical the system, the technical aspects of it, and the relative ramifications of that in the actual return and all has been very clearly explained. I think we'll not have any better person to present it than Mr. Arup. So I would request all the people who are available here at this webinar to take proper benefit out of it, and they can share this knowledge with the friends and people working in the domain. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for such insightful address. Your words actually have set a strong foundation for today's discussion. Now, I am very happy to share again that we have with us today Shri Shravan Kumar, sir. Sir is an IRS officer of 1991 batch and currently serving as Chief Commissioner of CGST Central Excise, Calcutta Zone. Sir has started his career as assistant commissioner in Raipur Commissionerate, and thereafter, sir has served in various capacities and various formation throughout the length and breadth of the country. Sir's areas of expertise are intelligence, investigation, intellectual properties, vigilance, SEZ matters. Sir is also a recipient of Presidential Award for Specially Distinguished Services in 2010. Sir is an avid reader, particularly on history, science, religion, literature, and he is also a very good lawn tennis player. And Sir has been really kind to give us time despite his so busy schedule. And wherever we approach Sir, Sir is always there to enlighten us. Sir, kindly again, I would request to enlighten us with few words. Sir.
Thank you, Ravindra. Mr. Amish Gupta, Mr. Abhishek Jain, Mr. Arup Das Gupta, and all the participants in today's webinar. I'm quite happy to be asked to be part of this webinar. Knowledge sharing through webinar is now very, very popular way of sharing it easily. Sitting from the offices, we can understand new ideas, new concepts, and share our information and knowledge. So I'm happy that DGTS is taking efforts and trying its best to popularize this platform and make knowledge sharing easy and accessible to most of the participants who are interested in indirect tax administration. So today's subject is again it's very, very it's a new subject, and it's a very interesting. Invoice management system has been introduced now in the GSTN. It's yet another taxpayer-friendly initiative by the GSTN. Invoice is a basic document for any transaction, and for GST it is more even more important because the credit flow is through the invoice. And this new system, which the today's learned guest speaker will explain, that through this system, invoice related issues, which in many cases become the reason for issue of show cause notices and disputes, they can be tackled by this system by making suitable corrections acceptable to recipient, and recipient pointing out that what are the issues in the invoices which suppliers should address. So this will also reduce litigation in taxation matters related to invoice. So this is a very, very good initiative, and I'm sure in detail it will be the presentation is quite in detail, and that will delineate all aspects of this new system. So I wish all the participants and the speakers the very best, and may this sharing of knowledge continue, and may everybody enlighten and get benefited from it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words, and we look forward to have you many more times here, sir. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Abhishek Jain, who is a partner and national head at KPMG India, and also represents FICCI. Based in Gurgaon, he has more than 20 years of experience in advising multinational and domestic companies across sectors like infra, power, IT, FMCG, and financial services. As a seasoned expert, he provides end-to-end services on financial incentives, supply chain optimization, and indirect tax advisory. He is quite a sought-after counsel, business advisor, advocate, and helping companies navigate complex tax matters. He is a key contributor to industry forums and publications. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Abhishek, and we'd like to have few words from you, Mr. Abhishek. Mr. Abhishek Jain.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, please. Welcome, Mr. Jain.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank DGDS on behalf of Vicky for organizing this session, which is very relevant at this point in time, where IMS has just been introduced, and from the returns for October and November, people will have to sort of start complying with this new sort of system. Also, I think the idea of introducing IMS is quite noble because most of the disputes in the past couple of years that we have seen is around the GST reconciliation, and the clients face a lot of issues in demonstrating these reconciliations before the tax officers, because currently these GST reconciliations happen outside the GSTN in the client's own environment, right? And there is always a disconnect subsequently at the time of audits and assessments uh, uh, between the tax authorities and the taxpayers on the veracity of these reconciliations. With IMS system coming into force, these reconciliations would be real time, and both the supplier, the recipient, and the the department would have these reconciliations readily available in the GSTN system itself. So there'll be no sort of difference in the data that each of these three parties have. The other good thing about this system is that to begin with, it is optional, and the clients have a option, the taxpayers have an option to either accept or reject the invoices uploaded by the vendors, or keep it pending if there is a timing difference between the date when the suppliers have raised the invoice and when the recipients have raised it. Having said that, the taxpayers will have to be cognizant of this new system. They'll have to align their process and IT systems so that they are able to take full advantage of this new IMS system. Also, I think it is important that for credit notes, this option of keeping it pending is not there. Credit notes have to be either accepted or rejected. And hence, it is very important for all the taxpayer to understand the system in the minutest of details. And this webinar by DGTS will be very helpful. The taxpayer should raise if they have any queries and clarifications to seek, and take full advantage of this session. Because as I said that it will be very important that the processes and IT systems of both the supplier and the customers are completely aligned with each other, and also with this new IMS system, and they're able to comply and take full advantage of this system. And again, for credit notes and everything, the SOPs and processes of suppliers and customers will have to be aligned so that there are no difficulties tomorrow in complying with this new system. With that, thank you so much again, DGTS, on behalf of Vicky, for organizing this session and sharing more details and perspective on what this is all about. And possibly the taxpayers will ask all their queries that they have, and hopefully they will all be answered in this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jain, for your views. Now, for the presentation, I would like to introduce Shri Arup Das Gupta ji, who is a chartered accountant and a guest faculty at NASEN, Calcutta. Mr. Das Gupta, almost after 2 decades of practice as a chartered accountant, in 2023 has started his legal practice as an advocate in the city of Calcutta, and is appearing on the matters of indirect taxation and cyber law before different authorities, and also tribunal and high courts. Mr. Gupta has published articles in journal of various reputed professional organizations and leading online websites, and has an article with a view of more than 2 million. Mr. Gupta has trained students, professionals, senior government officers, professional bodies, trade bodies on GST and other related topics across multiple states in India. Welcome, Mr. Arup. Kindly throw the light and you can begin with your presentation, please.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction. Thanks to this wonderful opportunity given to me for sharing my thoughts. And I think Sir has rightly shared that this is one of the key developments that has happened in history. And therefore, I think this is the right time because October 14th is the time when this started. So maybe on 23rd October, we are discussing this. So
Mr. Gupta, excuse me, your voice is not very clear and audible.
is it okay now?
Not yet.
Just like to go to the presentation. I think the voice is better.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll quickly go through the presentation. So I'll just share it. Sir, I hope my presentation is visible.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So just before we begin, I would just like to start with a disclaimer that this is just for the sake of knowledge sharing and this does not have any legal validity. The host for this particular webinar, DGTS CPIC, may or may not subscribe to the views that I'm holding. All the views that I'm having, that is my personal capacity. And any reference to the provisions of CGST will also have similar reference to the SGST law. Now, as we all know that what is the main purpose of IMS, that needs discussion, though that is wonderfully shared already by Principal Sir and also by ADG Sir. And so one of the important thing is that the invoice level corrections or invoice level matching was not possible. So what was happening if I availed an ITC for an invoice which is relating to 21-22 in the year 22-23 to demonstrate that fact to the proper officer, it was becoming a challenge for the tax officer. And it was also difficult for the tax officer to understand the same because there were many ifs and buts. Right? Maybe it is there that my 2A in 21-22 is more than my 3B. But how does that actually prove that I have availed that particular ITC the next year? So all these things were becoming a huge challenge. So now IMS actually sets forth a proper mechanism which will take away all these challenges. Why? Because whatever ITC I'm going to avail, it is going to be on the basis of invoice level data that is going to be there. So next thing is the ability, the possibility of that has been shared is that you either accept or reject an invoice or keep it pending in the system which can be availed later. So what is happening? Previously, what was happening? Suppose Mr. X has raised an invoice on Mr. B, and in the invoice, everything was properly uploaded in GSTR 1 except the invoice number. Except the invoice number. So the invoice number was 15, but while uploading in the invoice, it was shown as 16. Now I have gone ahead and accepted the credit. I have taken the availed the credit and everything was done. Now when my assessment is happening and there is actually a matching between the invoice number as per actuals, the actual invoice number received by me and the invoice number which is available in my 2A or 2B, there was a mismatch. Why? Because the actual invoice shows invoice number as 15, whereas the 2B shows invoice number as 16. So now that was creating again another challenge because it may so happen that a taxpayer may issue similar amount of invoices. Say 24,000 invoices is being issued by a particular supplier to his recipient, and he issues those invoices maybe 5 to 6 times. So if there is a mistake in the invoice number, how could I as a taxpayer justify that no, this is that invoice which is actually 15 number invoice in actual invoice, but by mistake is uploaded in 16. It was becoming a huge challenge. So again, to mitigate that challenge, now the taxpayer is given an opportunity that if you feel that the tax number is not matching, the tax invoice number is not matching, so why don't you go and reject it so that the taxpayer, the supplier, he can go and make the correction forthwith. And so before your 2B is ready, maybe the corrections can be made and your invoice number will be proper, and then you can avail the ITC. So this is the and another important thing which ADG sir has also shared is about the credit notes. One major issue with the credit notes was that I have received an invoice from a customer. I have made the full payment from the to the vendor. Say I have received an invoice for 10 lakhs with 1,80,000 as my GST. I've made the payment to him for 11,80,000. But now, after 3 months, the vendor goes ahead and issues a credit note in my name. But he does not upload the credit. He uploads the credit note only in the month of September 2025. Okay, he uploads it in the month of September 2025 or maybe October 2025 when I'm not totally aware about the thing. Right. So now the challenge that was coming is that I was being issued a notice from the department, from the proper office, that why is it that you have not reversed the ITC for the credit note issued by your vendor? And my argument was, sir, I have never received this invoice. Sorry, I have never received this credit note. I have made the full payment to the vendor. After that, how can he issue a credit note without refunding the money to me? And I show you the ledger copy also. So, going with all this, that problem was also put forth to the government or to the authorities, and accordingly, that problem is also mitigated now. How? Now, whenever the supplier issues a credit note, the recipient has to accept that credit note. And once he accepts that credit note, then and only then his ITC will be reduced. Okay, his ITC will be reduced in his 2B. So if he does not accept the credit note for whatever reason, the liability will become, portrayed back in the liability of the supplier in his next month's, GST or 3B. He has to make that payment for that particular credit note. Why? Because the credit note issued by him for which he had reduced the output tax, I as a recipient, I don't agree to that and I have not accepted that. So now once I cancel the credit note, it goes back to him and he has to do the needful. Now, how does it happen? What is the chain of structure? We all know it. So first the supplier will upload the GSTR1. Then the GST uploaded the GSTR1, the invoices filed or saved in GSTR1. They will reflect in my IMS, invoice management system. In the IMS, I will take the actions. Once I take the actions, they will come in my draft 2B. After the draft 2B on 14th of the next month, whatever actions I take, that comes in my final 2B. Whatever comes in my final 2B, whatever actions I take, except reject or pending, the final thing is auto-populated to my 3B, and accordingly that is shown as ITC in my GSTR 3B. So this is the entire framework within which the IMS is working. So IMS is something in between your GSTR1 filed by the supplier and the 2B which is being drafted in your GSTR returns. So IMS is something which has come in between. So why did I say that whenever the supplier files his 3 GSTR1 or saves the record in GSTR1, it will come to the IMS? Because in the scheme of things, the arrangement that has been made, suppose Mr. A, who is the vendor, he has issued an invoice, and I'm presuming that he's issuing manual invoices. Okay, he's not under e-invoicing. So whenever he issues an invoice, suppose he uploads that in his GSTR1 and saves that particular record. As soon as he will save that record, suppose the turnover for the sale is on 23rd of October. 23rd of October, he saves the record. It will flow to my IMS on 23rd of October itself. So the recipient on 23rd of October can actually go and check whether that particular invoice is proper or not. If it is okay, he can always accept it. Okay. And then the things will follow. So this is one of the important changes that has happened, that even before the end of the month, we can start taking actions wherever the invoices are uploaded. So needless to say, if it's a case of e-invoicing, it will be on real time. It will auto-populate on real time on the IMS. So in case of e-invoicing, on real-time basis, I can always check in the IMS as to whether the data is correct or not. If it is not correct, I can always reject it so that the amendments can be made. Okay. And if it is, I find that the invoice does not belong to me. Again, that was one of the important challenges that was being faced in many cases, wherein even there are allegations of wrong credit being passed on to the wrong people. So what was happening? The person was selling in cash to somebody. and then he had to raise an invoice just to offset his stock, or else his stock was getting enhanced. So just to reduce his stock, he used to issue an invoice in the name of any GSTIN possible. So now, after the IMS feature is come into place, if somebody is issuing a wrong invoice in my GSTIN, I will have the power to reject that particular invoice. And so he cannot show it in my name. And so I save myself from the notice of receiving the notice after maybe 3 months or 4 months that you've got this credit, but this person has actually availed fake credit to pass on this credit to you. So you need to reverse it. So all those things were surprises to us because we never checked all those things because we thought this I've not received anything from anybody, so why do I need to bother? But now with the IMS facility, somebody is intentionally issuing a wrong invoice in my name. I always have the ability to reject that. So how does the functionality operate? So once a supplier saves an invoice in GSTR1, it is reflected in the IMS dashboard. So as I said, so in the case of say the manual invoice, you have made a so I'm a chartered accountant, I am raising an invoice of the client, and I have the very good habit of uploading daily invoices on my GSTR1. So I've uploaded it in my GSTR1. The moment I upload it in my I save the record in my GSTR1 and I save that particular invoice. I have not filed because I'm going to file the GSTR1 only before 11th of November. So I have not filed the GSTR1. I've just saved the record. Even then, it will flow to my client. Now, my client sees that there is an issue with some taxable value or tax rate or number or whatever, GSTIN or whatever it is. Then at that precise moment, he can request me that, this invoice that you have raised, it is correct, but this service you have provided to that group company and not to this company. So the correct GSTR will be this. So please amend that GSTR1 and upload it properly. Okay, re-upload re-save the invoice. So the recipient can take. So once the invoices are visible to the recipient, what are the actions that he can take? He can take the actions based on accept, reject, or pending. So he can either accept the invoices, which he thinks are in order in all places. So he's going to accept those invoices. Once he's accepting, it will go to his 2B. And from 2B, it will flow to his 3B auto-populated ITC, where he can avail that particular ITC. If he, for any reason, doesn't think that this invoice belongs to him, or there is some problem, there is some correction that needs to be made, he can always reject this particular invoice, and so it will not be auto-populated in his 2B. The third action that he can take for invoices is he can keep it pending. So what had happened? You are into pharmaceutical business. On 30th of September, the vendor dispatched a truckload of medicines. Now, on 2nd of October or the 3rd of October, you have got the goods. So ideally, what is happening? You are supposed to accept the same, and then avail the credit on the basis of section 16(2). So since here the vendor will upload his GSTR1 in the month of September, but since I have not received the goods in the month of September, I have two options. One option would be to accept the invoice, and then as per circular 170, where it says that accept all the credit that is available in your 2B, take it in your 4A5, and then show this goods in transit, the issues for 16(2)B, show it in your 4B2, which is the temporary reversal column. So that is one option that I can take. I can accept the invoice and show it in 4B2. But I also have the second option if you want, which is I can keep that invoice pending in the month of September. And when I get it in October, when I've got the invoice and the goods in October, in that month, I go and accept the invoice. So in particular, in October, it will flow to my GSTR 2B, from where it will go to my GSTR 3. So what happens if the amendments are made by the suppliers? So if the invoice is amended after filing GSTR 1, it affects the ITC flow to GSTR 2B in the subsequent month. So what has happened? Your supplier has uploaded the GSO 23rd October. I upload the invoice. You see that on 1st of November, so you have not seen it till now. You have not seen it till now. So on 11th of November, the recipient sees that there is a problem. And so after 11th of November, when I filed the return already, when I filed and uploaded my GSTR 1, the recipient realizes there's a mistake. So he rejects the invoice. So if he rejects that invoice, then in that case, whatever amendment I can do, the amendment I can do only in the next month. If I'm doing that amendment, it will flow to the particular supplier only in the next month. Okay, it will flow only in the next month. Next is the same for the QRMP. It will be generated, the to be generated and the invoices saved of file with suppliers will flow into the action once the amendment is complete. Now, impact of actions on IMS. So the accepted invoice, they will not remain. So what is happening from your GSTR 1 uploaded by the vendor, your first entry point would be the IMS, Invoice Management System. In the invoice management system, there are three buckets. The first bucket is accept. So whatever clothes you put in the accept bucket, the clothes will be transferred from your IMS to your 2B. So all those invoices which you have accepted, they will no longer be visible in your IMS. They will go to your 2B. The rejected invoice, they can be viewed in your IMS. They can be seen that, okay, these are the invoices I've rejected. So that if there is a maker checker concept, when the maker has made it and he has rejected it, maybe the checker can go back and check why the rejections have happened. So that's why the rejected invoices will lie in the IMS. Third is the pending invoices. So all these pending invoices which are there, they'll be lying in the IMS and they'll be available in your IMS to avail it in month after month, tax period after tax period, till the last date of section 16.4, which is 30th November. So once 30th November of the next year is reached, all the invoices which are there, which are kept in the pending bucket in IMS, they will be taken out from the IMS. So the pending invoices will be there only till, and they'll be there month on month. So if you have kept an invoice pending in the month of November, you have time till 30th November of the next month. Why I'm saying 30th, that is the last date to accept the invoices and all. So till to avail the credit. So say in the next month, next year, October, you get a clarity on that particular invoice and you want to accept it. So even in the next October, IMS that is coming in, which is on November, say November 14th, the draft 2B which will be generated. Even in that November 14th 2B, you can accept that particular pending invoice. Okay, so this is what I've just shared. This is again in a format. Just for remember that accepted will go to 2B, rejected will be excluded, pending will appear in the IMS and they will not appear in the 2B. They will not appear in your 2B because they are still there in the IMS bucket. So if you have to figuratively remember that IMS is a separate bucket, only if you comply with the conditions of IMS, that is accept, only then the clothes can be transferred to the 2B, not before that. And till it is pending or rejected, it will lie in the IMS itself. Rejected invoices will never travel to your GSTR 2B. Now, there is a concept of deemed acceptance. So, I am a person who is working on one-on-one basis. I am an individual. I don't have so much of time to go behind each and every invoice and demonstrate my course of action. So, in that case, what happens? There will be the system is giving me an opportunity of deemed acceptance. That all the invoices that are there, they'll be treated to be accepted. All the credit notes, they'll be treated to be accepted. It has a positive side. What is the positive side? You know that you're working, if you don't have any errors in your invoice, so you don't need to put in that time again of going in behind each and every invoice and checking whether they're right or wrong, because you are an SME, you are a very small enterprise, and so you think that there are not much corrections that need to be made. So in that case, deemed acceptance is easier and it gives you the flexibility to get that ITC within that particular tax period, even though you are not taking any action. But friends, we have to remember, sirs and madams, we have to remember that there is a very important thing here in relation to deemed acceptance. Once there is a deemed acceptance for invoice, there will also be a deemed acceptance for credit note. So in case you have any issue with the credit note, that you are not agreed, you are not given consent to the vendor that the credit note has to be accepted. So in that case, if you have deemed accepted it, then you have to reverse the ITC. Therefore, deemed acceptance should be the option only when invoices are there and when we are really sure that they are perfectly in order. Now, so how many times? So this is again a very common question that has been asked in the different webinars and seminars. That okay, so Arup Das Gupta has uploaded the invoice on 23rd of October when for the invoice dated 23rd October, and I say the recipient, he has actually taken action. He has accepted the invoice on 24th of October, or for that matter, 1st of November. He has taken the action of acceptance. But later on, when his team members, the checker, went through the things, he saw, oh no, there is a small mistake in the invoice. So can he again change the character from accept to reject or pending? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. So either before your supplier files his GSTR 1, or even after he files his GSTR 1, you can go on making iterations, you can go on making changes. So suppose I'll take this one example that I've taken. So say on 1st November you have accepted, on 3rd November your checker understands there is a problem, you can again reject it. You can again reject it, right? And again you feel that no, there is no rejection, I think I need to keep it as pending. You can again keep it as pending. You can go on making the corrections till your 3B is ready, right? So another example would be, say even if 2B is generated, and after 2B is generated, okay, I am now taking actions on my IMS. So I first of all, kept it as pending. I thought I didn't get the invoice or there was some issue with the invoice. But suddenly I realized that my marketing team tells me that yes, we have got the invoice. So I'm going to accept that particular invoice. So even though in the first instance, I had kept it as pending, after getting the draft 2B. So what had happened? The draft 2B was altered. Now in the new 2B that I had generated after keeping it in pending, that particular invoice was not showing in credit, right? So now again, say on the 19th of November, I can go ahead and accept that particular invoice. And if I go ahead and accept that particular invoice before 19th of February, 19th of November, before I file the GSTR 3B, I can always do that. And once I accept it, I have to recompute my GSTR 2B. That invoice will again be included in my final 2B. And once my final 2B is changed, it will auto-populate it to my new 3B. And in the 3B, I can take the final 2B figure, avail that credit and file the return. Okay. So the underlying question is, till you file the GSTR 3B, you can take number of actions in your IMS. So how do you access it? It's coming in the returns portfolio in invoice management system dashboard. What happens when an invoice is rejected? So when you accept, so now the next question that is commonly coming is, what happens if I rejected an invoice? So first of all, once you reject the invoice, it is there in the IMS as rejected invoice. It will not be there in your draft 2B. So in your original 2B, you had a credit of 1 lakh. Okay. From there, one invoice of 12,000 you have rejected. So the moment you reject it, you recompute your 2B, your new ITC availability will be 88,000 and not 1 lakh. Okay. So that is excluded from your 2B. So once it is there, once you reject, it will be reported through your supplier. Now, the supplier will understand as to why the rejection has happened. Maybe you can give him a call and tell him that this invoice is wrong, taxable value, whatever is wrong, that can be done. It will be notified to the supplier. Now, what action the supplier can take, that also we'll discuss in a few slides from now. So now, since you have rejected that particular invoice, please bear in mind, no ITC can be claimed on the same by you because it is not flowing in your GSTR 2B, right? So now the second question which is coming is, invoice erroneously marked as rejected. So the invoice was correct, but by mistake, you have shown it as rejected. So what will happen in that particular situation? So in that situation, you need to notify the supplier of what the erroneous is. So you'll be notified. Once it is notified, now we have to wait for the supplier's action. Why? Why? Because you have by mistake rejected that particular invoice, right? So now what are the two actions that the supplier can take? Regarding the questions, you can, sirs and madams, you can always address the questions. We will take up. I'm sure the way detailed presentation is made, most of the things will be covered. But still, if something is left, I'll be happy to answer all the queries. So now, when I'm waiting for the supplier's action, the two types of actions can be taken by my supplier. First, he can make an amendment of the thing. So what he'll do, if he amends the rejected supply, the rejected invoice, and refiles it, it will again apply, it will again appear in my IMS dashboard. Okay, and then I can accept the same and it will appear in my 2B. And when I'm telling about amendment, amendment will be possible in two situations. One situation is before he has filed his GSTR1. Before he has filed his GSTR1, I have already rejected the invoice. So he has made the amendment, he will make an amendment and again file that particular invoice because he knows that there is no error in that. And once he uploads the amended invoice, I can accept it. The other way of doing it is after he has uploaded the one, I have got the 2B, and then I've got the IMS and I've rejected it. So in that case, what will happen? He can file GSTR1A again. Okay, he will file GSTR1A before filing his 3B. In that, he can make the amendment. In that, he can make the amendment. And when he makes that amendment in that, it will come in my next 2B. And then only, in the next 2B only, I can get that credit. The other option is reissuance of invoice. So what will happen? You have rejected. So he also rejects the entire invoice. He does not do it. And what does he do? He is actually going to issue a new invoice. And once he issues a new invoice, either in that month or in the next month, then the recipient has to accept that. Then the recipient has to accept that particular new invoice and avail the credit. So now, what do we need to do? That is very important. From the supplier point of view, from the recipient point of view, we need to be very careful and we need to regularly check the IMS dashboards for any of the updates that are happening. But we need to also keep in mind that we should not press a panic button either for the taxpayers, tax professionals, or for any other person who's advising the taxpayers. Why? Because this regular check means checking at a regular interval. Because we know ultimately that whatever will happen, the GSTR1 will be filed before the filing date, and then the IMS will be shared with the recipient. The recipient can always take action based on the IMS before it flows to the 2B, and then in the 2B they can take the final credit, and file the 3B. But they need to be vigilant because if there is any credit note where there is being issued to them, which they know it's not there, and if they can at the earliest time reject the same, then it will go back to the supplier, and the supplier will be aware and conscious as to why the credit note has been reversed, why the credit note has been rejected. So that will help us in maintaining a good relation with our vendors also. So that is the reason that we need to continuously monitor the dashboard. Okay, so what is the systematic approach that we need to follow while maintaining the IMS? So first of all, what we have told is we are going to do a daily checking of the dashboard. So we know what are the invoices which have been cancelled, which have been rejected by our customers. We have issued some invoices to our recipients. The recipients have actually rejected the invoice, so it has come to my dashboard. I am in the supplier dashboard, so in that I need to be updated as to why is it rejected. Maybe I can call them, understand, and make the necessary correction. So what are the prompt actions that we need to? I need to accept the valid invoices, okay, so that they are going to my 2B. I need to reject the invalid invoices for whatever reason, and if I'm uncertain about the entire thing, I need to keep it as pending. Okay, so one important thing in IMS is that I need to clearly communicate with the suppliers. So if I'm rejecting an invoice, it cannot be merely on flimsy ground that that dash is not there or things like that. So if it is so that the invoice number is matching and the taxable amounts are matching, maybe for some small detail which is not there. So in those cases, we can always tell them that the invoice has been rejected because of this particular reason. The invoice number is not matching or the taxable amount is not matching. So why don't you just amend that particular thing and then upload the same. And that's why, friend, that's why, sir, madam, it's very important now that in case of your client, in case of your vendors who are working on e-invoicing model, for them at least, you should do the checking before the end of the month. So for October, you can always ideally check it before 30th October, and then you can check it before 30th October, and then you can approach the vendor that this is the mistake. Why don't you make the amendment immediately so that I can avail the credit whenever I have to do it? Okay. So this is again one important thing. First thing is that we need to correct the errors which are rejected. Second and most important thing is that if anything is rejected, okay, some invoice is rejected, we are again uploading the same. So we need to have a proper documentation as to what was the reason for rejection. Because it should not be the case that just because an invoice is not accepted by my supplier, okay, I made the supply, but my supplier does not want to accept the invoice right now. He wants to take the invoice after a few days. Okay, in those cases, I don't need to make any amendment. Why? Because from my end, everything is prim and proper, everything is right. He has rejected the invoice because they cannot take the booking in their account because of so many other reasons. So in that case, if there is an invoice rejection, but I have not, make the amendments or need not re-uploaded it, then I need to be clear as to why that is done. Similarly, from the recipient side, if I rejected the credit notes, okay, if I rejected the credit notes or I rejected the invoices, I also need to be clear as to why that credit note was rejected. Is it only because I don't want to reverse my ITC in that particular month? Or is it that there is some genuine mistake in that particular credit note because of which I have done? So next is compliance with the deadlines. We also need to remember that whatever has to be done before filing the 3B. So whatever corrections, iterations are to be made in my IMS, they have to be made before the filing of the 3B. I can go on making changes, but at any cost, it should be before the filing of the 3B by the recipient. What happens if no actions are taken? So first of all, there will be deemed acceptance. So on the basis of deemed acceptance, ITC availability will be there. So even if there is some wrong, there is some error in the invoices that cannot be corrected. So that's a huge issue which may become a challenge later on. That this problem was there with the invoice, but you had an opportunity in IMS. So why didn't you get this reconciled? Why didn't you get it corrected? Okay, because we need to remember one thing. Once it is deemed accepted by me, the invoice or the credit note is deemed accepted by me, then I cannot go back to the supplier and tell him that, why don't you correct it again? Okay, why don't you make this correction? He will make the corrections only if there is a genuine amendment in required in the invoice or the credit note from his side. Okay, because he will not take this ground that, I have not checked it. So he can say that when you accepted it, deemed acceptance is also acceptance. When you accepted it, so why should I again go back and make any changes in particular invoice or credit? Okay, so another question that is circling in the in different forums is, if an invoice is marked as accepted, will it get logged for correcting by the supplier? It is nothing like that. Once we get the acceptance, we give the acceptance to the IMS, before the GSTR1 is uploaded by the supplier, he can go on making the amendment. Once he makes an amendment, so 23rd October, Arup Das Gupta uploads the invoice. 24th October, the recipient accepts the invoice. 26th October, Arup Das Gupta again makes an amendment to that particular invoice. So 26th October, again the IMS will flow to the customer, to the recipient, that Arup Das Gupta has changed this particular invoice. Do you want to accept this particular invoice amendment? Do you want to accept it, reject it, or keep it as pending? So all those actions can be taken. So once it is accepted, there is no question of the ITC being blocked. So if there is any amendment being made by the supplier before I file my 3B, any amendment that has been made, that will have an impact on my ITC. So in GSTR 1, he had uploaded the invoice, I've accepted the invoice, right? In 1A, he's again amended that particular invoice. Okay, he has reduced that particular invoice. So now I'll again have to accept or reject or keep pending that particular amendment that is being made, right? But since he has reduced, the particular liability. So in this case, I cannot keep it pending. I will have to accept it or reject it. Why? Because he is taking a benefit from the government. He had actually said that this tax is going to be payable, but now he is saying that the tax is being lowered. So there, the challenge is that since there is an impact on the ITC, so it has to be accepted again by the recipient. So what records will be available? So all the records will be available from the IMS to the 2B, excepting two things, which is the POS. So I am from Kolkata. I go to Maharashtra, stay in a hotel, and I am being billed CGST as GST Maharashtra with my GST number in Kolkata. I come back in my IMS. That particular credit will never reflect. Why? Because my place is West Bengal, but the POS of that particular credit for the ITC is outside West Bengal, and therefore that will not show. And also any invoice which is beyond the 16/4 date. So March 24 invoice uploaded by the vendor on 1st of January 2025, it will not come in my IMS. It will directly go to my 2B in the column ITC not available. Why? Because that is blocked by 16/4. Okay. So once it is shown is accepted, he can get the invoice in the GSTR 2A, 2B, and if it's there in the 2B, he can always claim the credit. So which are the documents which will not flow, okay, which will not be a part of IMS, which will not pass through IMS, but they will flow directly from the returns to the 2B. It is first is the GSTR 5, which is the return filed by NRTP. So if NRTP is filing any return, the credit for the same will flow directly to 2B. ISD returns, of course, here there is no meaning because it's between the same PAN entity. So therefore, maybe the system has been framed in such a way that whatever credit is given by the ISD, it will be received by the recipient entity. It will not need to be accepted, rejected, or kept pending. Similarly, IceGate documents, since the tax is already paid while getting the goods into India, so the tax is already received. So in that case also, there is no question of there being a difference. Therefore, in IceGate documents, they will also not be a part of IMS. They will directly go to your 2B. RCM, again, you have made the payment for the tax. You are availing the tax. So in that case also, it will not be a part of IMS because there is no question of acceptance or rejection. It will flow through your 2B directly. Document where ITC is ineligible for POS or 16/4 rules that we have already discussed. Documents where ITC to be reversed on account of Rule 37A. So what is Rule 37A? February 24, I get an invoice from the vendor. He has uploaded in his one. I avail the credit. Now, as on 30th September 2024, he has not filed his 3B. So Rule 37A gives me a benefit which says that the credit that you have availed in February 24, you need to reverse it in the month of October 24 or November 24. Why? Because your supplier has not filed his GSTR 3B. What is the benefit that I'll get if I reverse the credit in the month of October 24 and November 24? You don't have to pay interest. You don't have to pay interest. Even though you avail the ITC in February 24, you have used the money for so many years, so many months, and the government has not got the money because 3B is not filed. Still, for the sake of benefit given to the taxpayer will not have to pay the interest. What happens if I don't reverse it within 30th November 2024? Then I'll have to pay the interest on the same from February 2024. So hypothetically saying, if I reverse that credit for that particular vendor who has not uploaded the invoice, who has not filed his 3B in the month of January 2025, so I have to pay interest from February 24 to January 25. What happens if the vendor has uploaded his invoice? I have paid in the month of October. The vendor has uploaded in the month of November the 3B. So what will happen? In the month of November, I will go back and claim that credit under Rule 37A. So that credit, since I'm claiming it again, that will, since that claim that is there, it will not reflect in my IMS. It will just go directly to my 2B. Right? Because I already availed this credit in February. So there is no question of the same thing appearing again once the vendor files his 3B. Okay, so what are the 4 scenarios in which you cannot keep pending? First of all, as we have discussed, original credit note cannot be kept pending. Original credit note rejected by the applicant cannot be kept pending. Upward amendment in credit note, that cannot be kept pending. Downward amendment in credit note, that cannot be kept pending. and downward amendment of invoice or debit note. To put it very simply for all of you, any transaction related to credit note cannot be kept pending. Whether it's the original credit note, upward or downward amendment, you cannot keep pending. You have to accept it. What is the fourth thing? Is invoice or debit note. There is a downward amendment. So आपने एक लाख का एक बिल था, उस पे 18,000 का क्रेडिट था, आपके पास 18,000 का क्रेडिट आया, आपने 18,000 का क्रेडिट ले लिया. अब वेंडर जाके उसको 50,000 बना देता है और उस पे 9,000 का टैक्स कर देता है. तो since he is reducing the tax from 18,000 to 9,000, this cannot be kept pending. Why? You essentially is taking refund of the 9,000 from the government. So whenever there is a downward amendment in debit note or in the invoice, that has to be, accepted by the accepted or rejected by the particular person without having a compulsory acceptance or rejection by the recipient. That will not be allowed. Okay, so now the thing is that there is original record and there is amendment record. So if the original invoice and the amendment invoice, they belong to two different periods. So I uploaded the original invoice in October 24, and I uploaded the amended invoice only in November 24. So what will happen in this case? I cannot accept only the amended invoice of November 24. I have to first accept the original invoice of October 24, and then I have to accept the amended invoice of November 24. Okay. In case both the records belong to the same action, then what will happen? The action has to be taken only on the amended records, because that is the final record available for the tax period. So if there are two records that are in two periods, original is separate and amendment is separate, first the original has to be accepted or rejected, then the amendment can be accepted or rejected. So RCMs are not a part of IMS. They'll flow directly to your 2B. So we don't need to worry about it. Okay, so this we have already discussed. So GSTR Arup Das Gupta has uploaded the invoice on 23rd of October. So he has again changed on 26th of October. And on 26th of October, the recipient has already accepted the invoice. And 28th of October, again I go ahead and make an amendment. So again, it will flow to the IMS of the recipient after I have made the amendment. So till the GSTR 1 is filed, whatever iterations are made in the saved mode by the supplier, every iteration will go as an IMS entry to the recipient, and they have to take fresh action every time. So if the recipient rejects the record before filing of GSTR 1, we have already shared, they can edit the invoice and again upload it. If the recipient rejects after filing GSTR 1, so in that case, the amendment has to be made in GSTR 1A. Okay, in GSTR 1A or in subsequent one, and the amended record will be made available in the IMS. So if before one, then he can make the amendment. If after one is filed, then the IMS the invoice is rejected. In that case, amendment has to be made either in 1A of that particular month or IFF of the subsequent month. And accordingly, actions will be available to the particular recipient in his IMS based on the amendment. So there are two views, recipient view and supplier view. Whether you can upload the data, yes, you can upload it in the Excel format. Yeah, so whether I will get 2B, yes, 2B and 2A continue as they were there. 2A will also continue, 2B will also continue to be generated on the 14th of the month. But now it will be known as a draft 2B. Previously, it was a final 2B from where we are, as per circular 170, we are taking the entire amount into 4A5 and net of credit note, and then we are doing permanent reversal, temporary reversal, and all those things. But now what will happen? The 2B will be a draft 2B. And based on our actions in IMS, whether we accept the invoice, reject the invoice, or keep it as pending, or we accept or reject the credit note, the final 2B will be drafted based on that. And now, because of the iterations that you can take, so there will be a lot of iterations of 2B also. So once you have made a change in your IMS action, a fresh 2B needs to be generated. Because once you generate a fresh 2B, that 2B will go to your 3B. Okay, so can I take actions? Yes. So this is what I've discussed. Even after 2B date is there, till your 3B date is filed, before you're filing your 3B, till that date, you can go on making iterations in your IMS, and accordingly your draft 2B will go on changing. Okay, so if you keep your records pending, they'll be kept pending. They'll be kept as pending till 16.4 dates are coming, and once 16.4 dates are come, they'll be released out of the IMS. Okay, so this is for the similarly for the quarterly taxpayers. Okay, so as I've said, as soon as you make the changes in the IMS after generation of the draft 2B, we'll have to continuously go on generating the new 2B each and every time, because once you generate the final 2B, then only the figure will flow to your 3B from there. Okay, so now this is again an interesting question that was put by trade, that okay, so is there any scenario where 2B will not be generated? It will not be generated only if the previous period 3B is not filed. So the 2B is of dependent origination. What do we mean by dependent origination? 2B is dependent on the filing of the 3B of the last year, of the last tax period, of the last month or the last quarter. And once you file that, basis the the details put forth by the vendor, then only the draft 2B will be generated. And on the basis of that only, the IMS which is there, that will be auto-populated into your 2B, and then the 2B can be filed. So the taxpayer can generate their 2B from the IMS dashboard after filing their previous 3B. So without filing your previous 3B, you cannot now move into the next thing. Now, here there is a situation where what has happened, you are an advocate by mistake. Since you are a chartered accountant for so many years, by mistake, you have raised an invoice under the forward charge mechanism. But you had to raise an invoice under the reverse charge mechanism. So what has happened? I have uploaded the invoice in forward charge mechanism. My client has accepted the invoice, has availed the ITC, has availed the ITC. So in this case, what can I do? I can always go ahead and amend that invoice subject to 16.4 timeline for read with section 37. So subject to timelines of making the changes of invoice in the amendment of invoices. So what will I do? I will make that amendment, and wherever we put that, whether the supply is related to service charge, reverse charge mechanism, I'll put a tick there. So as soon as I put a tick that yeah, supply is related to reverse charge RCM, then what will happen? That will go to the 2B of the client as an RCM invoice, and his credit will be amended. Okay, his credit will be amended once the recipient accepts that particular invoice. Once the particular recipient accepts that invoice, his ITC will be lowered because the invoice has been transferred from FCM to RCM. Okay, so now he has to pay the tax because I have not paid the tax, or even if I paid the tax, I'll claim back the tax because that is not a tax payable by me, rather that is a tax which is payable by him. So now the RCM invoice will flow to his 2B, and basis that he has to pay the tax and then he can avail the credit. So this is about the 23-24 figures, since it's coming in October 24, 14th October se chalu ho gaya hai. So what will happen? All the invoices which are uploaded after 1st October, they will be available on 11th November. So now the thing is that on 11th, after 11th November, suppose you by mistake reject the invoice which is belonging to 23-24. So the supplier will not have any eventuality to pass on that credit to you, because even if he files a 1A for November, for the month of October after 11th November, the 1A figures, 1A invoice will reflect only in the month of December, and your last date for availing credit is 30th November. So that's why, sirs and madams, we have to be very careful. Must have had the list of pending invoices with us already for 23-24, as in what are the invoices which are pending there. We have already have those details. So we need to keep a strict check on that, and maybe we can start checking from right now or even before first, and we can request the vendors also, if it's possible, that why don't you upload the invoices for 23-24 so that we can do a check of that and accept or keep it as pending as right now itself, because only thing that can be possible is accept, because either if you keep it pending, there is no meaning, because the 16 deadline will come. If we reject it, then there is no possibility for having it again, because the timelines will move. So that is regarding 23-24. Okay, so what happens if the credit note is rejected? then it is added to the GSTR 3B of the particular supplier in the subsequent tax period. So just because I have not reversed my, ITC, so it cannot reverse his output tax. Friends, when we are discussing about this, I would also like to discuss on. I'd like to take 30 seconds for discussing about Circular 212. Circular 212 was issued for reversal of ITC for post-supply discount under Section 15(3)(b)(2) of the CGST Act. So there it was said that since one of the conditions for reversing or issuing a credit note is that the recipient has reversed his ITC. So in order to get a compliance of that, Circular 212 had suggested that you need to get a certificate either from the recipient that he has reversed the credit or from his chartered accountant or CMA saying that the credit has been reversed by him if the amount is above, tax amount is above 5 lakhs. So that was the condition put forth by 212. And in 212 it was said that a functionality is being developed. Till such functionality is developed, only the certificates will be required. So that functionality as per 212 is this functionality of IMS, that now in the IMS, once your recipient accepts the credit note, it is a substantive proof that the ITC will be reversed by him. And so we, in my personal opinion, considered opinion, we don't have to get any further certificates, at least from the time IMS will be applicable from the recipients that they have rejected, that they have reversed the ITC. Okay, so you can take the timeline on IMS even after the date of 14th November. So 14th November is not a hardbound date. The hardbound date is the date of your filing 3B. Before filing your 3B, you need to take all the actions for that particular month in your IMS. So now I'll just quickly go through in maybe I have 5 minutes left. So in 5 minutes exactly, I'll just go through the practical aspects. So as we all know, this is the dashboard that we will be seeing, wherein you are getting this IMS dashboard. This is the inward supplies, where all these things are coming in: invoice amendment, debit note amendments, credit note amendments, and the invoices of the e-commerce operator. So they will be there. Okay. So in case the recipient taxpayer erroneously rejects an invoice in the IMS, then the same invoice can be accepted IMS again before filing of the 3B. So that changes can be, we can make those changes. And so here the main question is that for 23-24, I have rejected it. So can I again change it? So just before you make your, the particular IMS is complete, before you file your 3B, then in that particular situation, you can reject and then again go for, the acceptance of that particular invoice. Once you accept that within 30th November, then you can avail that credit for that particular tax invoice, which is relating to 23-24. But once we reject it in the IMS and we conclude the 2B and file the 3B, after that there is no action available for the month of in the month of November for the year 23-24. Okay, this we have discussed already, that if there is some mistake, then only we can rectify the same. So this is again another important question, that I had say Mr. X had issued a wrong invoice. Now, in order to nullify the wrong invoice, what he has done, he has issued a credit note. Okay, he has issued a credit note, which is being common. So now, after the IMS model, we need to be very clear that if somebody has issued the credit invoice wrongly and also a credit note wrongly, then what do we need to do? We need to actually do the invoice also has to be accepted by us, and the credit note has also to be accepted by us. Because if I'm not doing the both, like say I have not accepted the credit note, I have not accepted the invoice. Okay, I have not accepted the invoice, but I've accepted the credit note, then in that case there may be challenges there. So what we need to do is that if somebody is issuing an invoice which is wrong, we should tell them that instead of issuing a credit note, kindly amend that particular invoice. Kindly amend that particular invoice in GSTR1 and re-upload it instead of issuing a credit note, so that I can always accept that amended invoice. So this was a very common practice wherein somebody has issued a wrong invoice and they used to issue a credit note. So they used to say, अच्छा invoice भी 10,000 का है, credit note भी 10,000 का है, तो आपको tax देना पड़ेगा, तो आपको कुछ problem नहीं है. But while fighting some of the ASMT 10 matters, we actually had problems because invoice there can be always an argument that it's an ineligible invoice. That's why you've not accepted it. But why didn't you reverse the credit note which you have received from the supplier? So that could be an allegation that could be raised. So that's why the best thing to do in such situations is tell the vendor to kindly amend the particular invoice. Okay, so upward amendment is okay. So that has to be, action has to be taken by the particular person. Okay, so this is something which is already discussed. Yeah, so if I have already filed some 3B, I have rejected the invoice. So if any credit note has been rejected by the particular recipient before the filing of the 3B of the supplier, then what will happen? It will come in the liability of the next month. So for the month of October, I've got some credit note from the vendor. I've rejected in the month of November. So only in the month of December, when he's filing his, returns, only in that month the supplier can pay the credit can pay the tax on that particular credit note that has been rejected by me, and not in the same month, in the month in which I have rejected the credit note. So therefore, there is a question of interest again, and therefore credit note is going to become a very important pillar here in this particular action. So can the credit note be kept pending? The answer is no. So here we go to the practical aspects. IMS, you have both the views, inward and outside view. So inward supplies are there. We need to log into the inward supply. We say okay, because if no action is taken, it will be deemed. So you go to the all other ITC. First, we go to everything is hyperlinked. We go to accept, reject, or pending. Okay, and we also can keep it as no action, whether no action is taken. So that is the default. So if I have not taken action, rejected or pending, then it will be taken as no action, and then accordingly it will be treated as accepted. So here it is that how many invoices I've accepted, how many I've rejected, how many I've kept pending. Okay, so this is again the invoice level data, where it will show clearly that what are the invoices which have been received by me, what are the invoices which have been rejected, which are kept by me as pending. And here I would like to tell you that, as a major question was coming, that how do I find out so many things? So a search option is given, wherein you can search as per the trade name, as per the GSTN of the supplier. Okay, and you can actually find out that for that particular GSTN, what are the invoices that are there, and then you can take action based on that. Either you can take it as accept, or you can take it as reject. For the particular vendor, you can check invoice level wise also. Another important thing is that whatever in filters you need, like you can filter this also, like invoice is received from whom, what is the status, show me all the invoices which are accepted. So that can also be shown here. So this filter level data which is given, that is very important, as we have seen, as our team was seeing, that this is very important in finding out where there are large items of tax details, large number of tax invoices. So this is again the dashboard wherein I have shown is that rejected. Okay, so here how many records are there for accept, how many for record for pending, all the details for that particular vendor. It is I'm just ticking it here, and I'm showing that how many could be accepted or rejected. It's clearly coming out there. Another important thing is that we can also go for bulk records. So what is happening? I don't want to go one by one. I want to check more than one. So what I'll do is I'll just check all the serial numbers in particular there, and I'll do a complete accept or a complete reject or a complete pending. That also can be done by me. Once I do this, then I can, if I'm not happy with the thing that, oh, this should not be actually accepted by me, oh, I think there are some mistakes, I need to reset the entire thing. So you can reset the entire thing. For that also there is a mechanism given. You don't need to go on each one of them and go on changing it. If you want to start with a fresh slate, you can always reset the records which you want to reset. Say you want 10 records, 10 invoice level data to be reset, 10 credit notes to be reset. So you can go to those things, click it, and then do the reset button. So for that, you can again take a fresh upload. Next is about the IMS, which is a common question, whether how can we download. The download is there, you just take a download from there. And then what we were discussing about the computation of 2B, that computation of 2B is the most important thing that we need to do always. That is something that we need to remember. How many iterations we are doing, how many times we are changing, that is not important. What is important is the 2B has to be computed every time, because the 2B credit will only flow to my 3B. Okay, can only flow to the 3B. So this is how the 2B will look. So any record on the IMS dashboard where taxpayer has taken no action will be deemed as accepted by the taxpayer and credit will accordingly flow to 2B. So if I'm not taking any action, then I'm agreeing to this. Okay. If I'm not taking any action, that will automatically go. So that is deemed action that will be treated as accepted, both in the case of invoice as well as in the case of credit notes. So this is again from the supplier side. How it will look? It will the same thing. We can go for the view. It will have to show the return period here. We have to select the return period which is there. Accordingly, there will be a view wherein all these hyperlink details are given, that these are the things that are there. This is being issued by you. These are the rejected records where liability has been added back to your 3B. Okay, like for credit notes, these are the rejected records which are being added back to your 3B. So, and these are all the records which are being reflected. So, do you think that is proper or not? So, all these things they need to be checked. So, here is the invoice level data that is again given here. And again here from the supplier side also we can do filter. We can do on GSTN, like which are the GSTN number people who have actually returned this, who have actually rejected the invoices, who have what are the invoice levels, where is the invoice value which is below this, which have been rejected, which have been accepted. So all the multiple questions that we have that can also be asked and that can be seen from this particular issue that is there. So thank you very much. I would really like to thank DGT for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I've taken, I think, around 5 minutes more. I apologize for that. But actually, the topic is such that I cannot stop in between.
Not at all, not at all. It was actually needed, and you did a fantastic job, Mr. Gupta. And 5 minutes is nothing. And
Thank you,
since attendance itself says about your presentation and how interesting the topic was and how interestingly, in fact, you presented it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And it was very exhaustive and lucid. And I think we all have really benefited out of it. Thank you so much. Now I would invite all the participants for the questions, if any. Please ensure that the question asked should be relevant to our today's topic, and questions can be asked using the chat box as well. Now, please, participants can ask questions and get it resolved.
So one question is there from Vishwarati Jena, ma'am. So it is that can circular 170 is still applicable with IMS? Yes. Till date, circular 170 is not withdrawn, so it will stand validated. But only one thing is that is my opinion, because as far as permanent reversal is there, that will still be in force, and only for the limited purpose of temporary reversal for goods in transit. For that, I think there is an option which is being given to us that either you keep it as pending or you accept the invoice and then go for a temporary reversal. Yeah, so about the GSPs, yeah, the GSPs are already gearing up for taking care of this. I think so. They are already tearing on all the backend things that have also been shared. Okay, so I think they are gearing up and they will take care of the IMS in many cases. Can we change the status of our invoice from rejected to accepted in subsequent period of no, sir? As I've shared, you can make a lot of changes you want from your date of uploading of the invoice in the GST or one of the supplier till the date of your current 3B. Once your current 3B is filed, after accepting that invoice or rejecting that invoice, your action is closed for that particular period. Now, if any changes are required, you have to go back to the vendor and request him to make an amendment. Next, yeah, Nitika ma'am is asking that in case I just accept those invoices which are matching the books, I will not make any temporary reversal. Yeah, ma'am. So that is again a question which needs to be, I think, clarified. That is for something which you have sought clarification. Since that is a purely legal issue, I would not think that there is a forum for addressing that because it's related to circulars. But as far as I've shared that, as far as my personal opinion goes, circular 170 will still hold good only to the limited purpose of goods in transit. Maybe that change can be made. But even today, I have got a service invoice Say I've got a service invoice from somebody and I'm not sure whether I've received that service and paid that service or not. So in that case, what I can do is I can keep it as pending. I can keep it as pending. But if I accept it and then I say that the invoice is not received, then I need to go ahead and show it in temporary reverse. If I take action before 14th on invoice, will GSTR 2B will generate after? Yes. If you take any action before 14th, GSTR 2B will be generated after considering your actions. But as I've shared, 2B is a draft 2B now from 14th till the date of your filing 3B. So you can go on continuously making the changes one after another and regenerating your 2B as many times you want. Okay, so imported goods data will not flow from IceGate portal. The reason being simple, IMS is coming with the structure wherein the tax is paid by a third party and it is claimed by third party. So the situation here is in case of IceGate, you are the person who is paying that tax on the bill of entry. So you are very well eligible to take the ITC if it is eligible otherwise. So there is no question of acceptance or rejection in that case. That's why for RCM, for ISD, for import of goods, so you don't need any IMS. So that's why that will not flow to your IMS. Okay, so where B2B and B2B amendment will come in the same, so I've already addressed this. If they are in the same period, then the amendment will take priority. The amendment has to be seen and accepted and rejected. The original B2B will lose its color. Rejected invoices as per FAQ will be removed from IMS. Yes, it will be there. What I mean to say is it will be shown in your IMS. It will be shown that these are the invoices which are rejected, and then before the next IMS, the same will be removed from your IMS. But for that particular period, the document will be there to show you that these are the 10 invoices that you have rejected. So that tomorrow, in case of any audit or any proceedings, you can also have a proper record saying that this was the wrong invoice which had come to me. I had actually rejected that. And that's why it is good. That's what I've shared in my presentation also. It would be a best practice to download the final Excel that you have after taking all the actions on IMS. Okay, so goods in transit of September 24, how to address while taking action on IMS for portal, as the same is not available to take action in portal. So goods in transit, you can go for both the options. You can go for the old option also. You can accept it and show it in temporary reversal, or you can keep it. For September 24, you have to go with the old option of circular 170. You have to accept it and then you have to show it in temporary reversal. How to accept in case of bulk invoice, this we have already discussed. You can choose it in the final portion I've said. Choose all the invoices and then you can take the action of accept reject. Okay, more than 500 document not available to take any action in IMS. Is there any tool to download? I think that is already being worked upon. So we'll have to wait for further clarification for higher number of documents, which is 500 and above. For that, maybe the GSPs can come into help. Is there any mechanism to upload Excel template mentioning accepted? Yeah, so what you're talking about is you'll download a CSV file, do the same in the CSV file and upload it. So that is one of the requests that has been made, but I'm not sure that is there implemented till now. But yes, that is a request from the trade that has been already made. That if the CSV could be provided, wherein we accept all the thing and then re-upload it. But again, there are a lot of technical things that we need to see at the back end because there's a database issue, there's data integrity issue. All those issues need to be checked because again, when you're uploading a CSV, means I'm allowing an external data to come into my database. I mean to say the government database. So about data integrity will also be a question. So all those things kept in mind. But having said that, because I'm also part of the trade bodies, so we have represented this that if this could be allowed, this would be wonderful for small taxpayers. So next is it mandatory to take action on credit note issued by any supplier? Can I reject the CN if the same does not belong? Yes, sir. One of the important things of IMS, please do remember, is that credit note is going to play a very important role. If you think that the credit note does not belong to you and you don't reject it, that means you are going to accept it. And once you accept it, your ITC will be reduced to that extent. So you cannot go on tomorrow and say that, this credit note was wrong. So, I have been thinking, and then you take action with the supplier. So that becomes a challenge. So if you have, it is always mandatory for credit note to take action. Whether it's the original credit note, it is an upward amendment of the credit note where the credit note has been increased. It's a downward amendment of the credit note where the credit note has been reduced. In all the situations, the credit note has to be accepted. How ineligible credit to be bifurcated under section 17.5. Okay. So this is again something which I have discussed in the presentation. That IMS is all about acceptance, rejection, or keeping pending of the invoice. It has nothing to do with the eligibility of the credit. So if there is a 17.5, say a block credit, say of motor vehicle. So what we will do is we'll accept that particular invoice because that invoice belongs to me. After I do that, again according to circular 170, I will go to 4B1 and in the permanent reversal, I will show that particular block credit. But block credit has nothing to do with my IMS. Just because it's a block credit does not mean that I'll reject that invoice. Even if any credit is ineligible to me, say credit for food and beverages, credit for some motor vehicles, say works contract, whatever it is, I'll have to accept that in my IMS first. It will flow to my 2B. From 2B it will flow to my 4A5. From 4A5 I'll accept that, and then I will take whatever action I have to take in 4B1. Okay, is there any time limit on rejection option by the service recipient? Yes, it is only till the time of the next 3B. So before the next 3B, you have to either accept it or reject it or pending. And if you are saying that you want to keep it pending, then you can keep it as pending till the deadline of 16/4, which is 30th November of the next financial year. Before the 30th November of the next financial year, you'll either have to reject it or accept it. Either of the options you have to do it. You can't keep it as pending. It is not applicable for import of goods because import of goods you are paying your own tax, so it will not come in IMS. If invoice is not accepted or rejected, what will happen? It will be pending. So if it is kept in pending, you will not be able to get the 2B. It will not flow in your 2B. If it is not flowing in your 2B, you will not get the ITC for the same. That's just simple. As far as the supplier is concerned, he has nothing to bother because he has already paid the tax. But for you, you will be losing out in your ITC. Will GSTN provide any offline tool for bulk action? So this is again something that we need to take act. So we need to wait and see, because for the time being, whatever is there in the IMS, we can already take bulk action there. So I'm not sure whether any offline tool will be provided separately. But for IMS only, you can take bulk action. You can take the bulk action option and you can take together. For you can also select. For this particular GSTN, I want to accept all the invoices. That is also allowed. So there also you can take bulk action. Okay, regarding the hard blocking of 3B, this is not the right forum to discuss, so I would refrain from discussing that, because that's again a legal issue. Yes, I think so. We have done with all the questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta, for clarifying the doubts of the participants. I think it was a fantastic experience for all of us, and in such a short span of time, we have been enriched with all the modalities and information on invoice management system. And credit goes to all the presenters as well as the participants, without whom this webinar would not have been a success. And to conclude, very sincere thanks to Shri Shravan Kumar sir for taking out his time from his busy schedule to educate us on the topic and putting in efforts for making this session a success. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And to conclude, and also we are thankful to Shri Amish Kumar Gupta sir for his time and inputs and his guidance. Sir, your encouraging words are always a motivator for all of us. And now, on behalf of DGTS DZU, I take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly participated, contributed in this webinar on invoice management system organized by DGTS. Also, thanks to Mr. Abhishek Jain for his valuable experience sharing, and special thanks to Shri Arup Das Gupta ji for his presentation and speech that made us understand the topic very very easy manner. And in the end, I would like to thank all the participants for their support and patience and time in making this webinar a